Hello and welcome to the second episode of Mire Asset Mutual Fund and CNBC TV18.com presents Wizards of Finance, an up close and personal investor education series with leading financial stalwarts sharing their insights on long term disciplined investment during market volatility. I'm Anuj Singhal, and with me today I have Sarup Mohanty, CEO of Mire Asset Investment Management, Prateek Pant, the co-founder and head of products and solutions at Sanctum Wealth Management, and Gaurav Rastogi, CEO of Quera. Gentlemen, thanks a lot for joining me on this special webinar. The topic that we are discussing today is active and passive investment and whether they can coexist instead of competing with each other. Swaroop, let me start with you because a lot of people would want to know the basic difference between active and passive investing.
Thank you, Anuj. At the outset, as the name suggests, active is when a fund manager attempts at picking up stocks which would beat the market, or in our terms called the respective benchmark, while the passive is just buying the market, which is the respective index, as we call it. So two aspects of investing. One is looking at slightly going deeper into the market and getting into the ability of creating returns which are substantially or relatively higher than the market returns for investors. And the other one is just going and just buying out the market. So whatever is the market return comes back to you. So from an investor perspective, it's very important to understand both sides and invest accordingly. While when you enter into the active side of investing, please remember that the possibility of being on both sides are there. You can either beat the market or create an alpha over the benchmark, or when the markets are turbulent, you can actually underperform the market. But that is not so when you buy the passive side, which is whatever the market returns are yours. So when you look at constructing a portfolio, what is suitable to you and your risk profile is more important. And one should look at constructing a portfolio with a mix of both as per the goals of the investor and whatever suits the end result that is desired by the investor.
Okay, I must say that I'm someone who does both. I have, of course, SIPs in actively managed funds, and whenever we have had big crashes in the market, whether it was a 2008 crash, whether it was a post demonetization crash, or whether it was the crash due to COVID, I have used that opportunity to lap up the Nifty Junior ETF. So, Sarup, would that simply be a good strategy, in terms of coexistence of active and passive funds, or do you think there's a different strategy?
No, that can also be a very good strategy. As I said, whatever suits the investor. I mean, you are a savvy investor, you follow the market, so you are very good at knowing the falls and buying accordingly. One can approach it in both ways. One is the way you talked about, which is being very, very glued onto the market and at all falls buy at dips. And the advantage of passive is you can buy in and buy it at the real time market NAV. So that's something which the passives give you, while the actives give you the day end NAV. So your strategy is good. The other way of looking at it is, look at when you look at constructing a core portfolio, the core can be formed by the active side, which is the large cap or the diversified side of the portfolios, and tactical calls can be taken through theme funds on the passive side, which you can look at adding to the portfolio. But going forward, I do believe as the markets become more and more what can I say is the right word is once they become more and more streamlined and efficiencies grow in the market, the core side could become the passive side, and you can look at taking tactical calls on the active side through fund managers, which will come in and give you very good active strategies to beat a certain part of the market. So each to his own, and whatever suits the portfolio, depending on the requirement of the investor, there are different strategies that can be held. You can have a good debt and equity mix on the active side and take gold on the passive side also through the commodity exposure if you want to take. So there are various combinations that work, and a good advisor can take you through any of these combinations as per the requirement of the portfolio.
Okay, so let's do that. Prateek, tell us how has the trend been over the last few months in terms of some of these products, you would have looked at kind of money which has gone into both active and passive funds. If you could give us some insights.
So, thanks, Anuj. Swaroop is really well defined in terms of how active and passive can be, interplayed with each other in constructing portfolios. As we've said, that the trend for passive funds have been growing not just domestically in India. Globally, it's been a lot more mature market where you've seen a lot more allocation coming into passive funds over the last 4 or 5 years specifically. It's been seen that active managers are finding it more and more difficult to actually start beating indices. In India, of course, there has been a lot of polarization, especially in large caps, which had happened over the last couple of years, and that's why you find, in the near term, short term trend, it's been a tough job trying to actually beat these indices. I guess the trigger also in India was in 2018 when you had the reclassification of mutual funds, where it's made it a little bit, you have to be in a box in the way you run these strategies. For example, when you run large cap funds, 80% of the allocation really needs to be in the in only the Nifty 100 stocks. So the scope for really trying to derive any type of alpha is now limited to about 20%. So it's been a tough market for active managers, especially over the last couple of years, and that's really where you're seeing a lot more passive strategies coming in play. I guess the other area where you've seen some amount of passive strategies come in is on the international side. So it's not just that you're taking exposure within the domestic markets, but also when you look at some of the larger indices like Nasdaq, S&P, or some of these more mature markets, you are able to get now exposure into them through a fund of fund index in India, and that's really where you're seeing the role of passive play a fairly important part. But I guess, as Swaroop said, right, it's about how you decide to run it. There are two ways in which alpha creation typically happens: either by having the right manager selection, or by actually looking at the asset allocation. And we've seen that asset allocation actually plays a much larger role at times than manager selection in deriving returns which are there from a portfolio perspective.
Now, how to tell this to retail investor? Because at the end of the day, a mutual fund manager is supposed to generate alpha and is supposed to beat market returns. That is why you put money in a mutual fund, right? So how do you sell to a retail investor that, look, don't put money into actively managed fund, but in the passive fund that you pay to.
So, see, simply put, right, I think a couple of things that retail investors understand very, very well, right? And I think it starts with data. So, and it starts with a bit of intuition. So let's start with the intuition first, right? So why is it that active investors today find it very hard to beat the market in India? While if you look at about 15 years ago, active investors were beating the index in India by 2 to 3 percentage points every year. So when you have few informed investors, right? So the idea is that the active investors that I'm looking at, I'm not looking at a lot of the Robinhood traders who are punting and picking stocks. I'm not looking at them as active investors, but think of the the portfolio managers you have at AMCs, all the different kind of PMS services that are being run, all the different managed accounts that are being run. So you have a lot of very high caliber talent that all has the same objective, that I want to get returns which are better than the market. But when they compete, they're not competing with the retail guys. Once you have enough of them, right? So once you have, if you have only 5 people who are looking for opportunity in the market, they will find it. Simply because they're putting in a lot more time and effort, and that's their day job. But say you have 40 small cap funds, or you have 40 large cap funds, and you have more than 100 PMS, and bunch of other really savvy investors looking for the same opportunities in the same set of stocks. It becomes very hard for any one of them to continue to outperform for a very long period of time. So that's the intuition behind why, when more managers compete, active's performance actually deteriorates. Right, so that's the intuition. Now the data says the same thing. If you look at the data in the last 5 years or the last 10 years, it's pretty clear that large cap active managers have found it very hard to beat them. In small cap and mid cap, we still see some pockets of outperformance on the active side, but that's also kind of going away. And in the next 5 years, I think that will change. but that's purely a function of the competition between the active managers themselves. And that we believe is a very hard bar to overcome.
Hmm. So that's an important point. And Pradeep, let me get back to you because from what I can make out is if your approach in the market is top down, then perhaps you go for passive. But if your approach in the market is bottom up, then you go for active, right? Especially in the broader market. But that's a tough decision for retail investor to make, right? So how are we helping him with it?
You know,
I
I,
think
I
that was for me. I think. Yeah, Anuj, I think when you look at it from a investor perspective, I think what matters more and what needs to be driven down more to the investor is that the plan or the goal of the investor is more important than the underlying. When it comes to selection of the underlying, it is a factor of what the asset allocation, as Pratik rightly put it, which is defined on the goal. And after that comes the scheme selection, right? And that should be very clear to the retail investor. I mean, the approach there has been very different. First, to select the scheme or the underlying, then decide where a person wants to go. But once that is clear, then what the underlying should constitute is a factor of that. And that becomes more important. And then Pratik also laid out the risk factors being more important. Depending on the risk, the investor might want either to go for beating the benchmark or the market or just buy the market. I mean, slowly, if you reflect on what Gaurav has been saying, and markets becoming efficient because of more and more people looking for the same thing in that same prescribed market, the alpha generation becomes different or it starts narrowing down. From that perspective, this is where the whole threshold of Indian markets become, and it's such a great time to be because it's an advisor's delight at this moment to choose to mix the both and give a better solution. But to come specifically to the retail investor, I think what the retail investor needs to graduate to is to graduate to know the purpose of his investing rather than the underlying. Once the purpose is sorted, there are both types of players. I mean, if you look at what Gaurav does on the online space, they also help the investor find their path. While if you look at the wealth management space, which Pratik handles, they also look at they give you a very active sort of hand holding to the investor. But both solve the same purpose of taking the investor to the desired goal is the basic submission. So the point I want to segregate to a retail investor that the purpose of investing is more important than the underlying, and that should be made very clear to retail investors at this point in time.
Yeah, actually, Pratik, do you want to weigh in on that? Because that is exactly my question then. You know, retail investor in India, and with so much money now coming into the market, and so many people, being beginners, it's okay for us to, understand all of this. We are in this industry for so many years. But, average age of new investor in India is 24, 25. Someone who's starting his or her career and is putting 10, 12,000 every month in market. How does he or she make that differentiation? Pratik?
Sure. So maybe Anuj, the one thing which retail investors should not do, which maybe Gaurav just briefly referred to, is be the Robinhood investor, right? Because we're seeing a lot of trends around people trying to pick that stock for a fast buck, right? It is going back to the basics which Swaroop did refer to. Once you understand what your goals are, and when you talk about goals, we're talking about longer term life goals out here, and then you have to build around your asset allocation. So I guess if you were to ask us to construct a portfolio for a retail investor today, we would want to put the large cap allocation, which could be his core portfolio, into more passive strategies rather than active strategies right now. And then his satellite portfolio, or a portfolio which is run on the small and mid cap side, there is still scope for significant alpha creation at this point of time. There is a little bit of imperfection in the market, information asymmetry, and the research is a little bit still clearly manager driven, and that's really where you can see a lot of alpha creation actually happening in these type of strategies. So if you were to create a portfolio for for a retail investor today, it will be a mix of the two, but depending on the asset class, you would choose an active or a passive strategy.
On Quera's website right now, and since we're talking of Robin Hoods, it does look like it's a very youth-friendly sort of website. But at the end of the day, there's so much uh, retail money which is now chasing the market. So you tell us, why are you using your platform? How do you make this differentiation on what kind of investors are better suited for passive investment and what kind of investments are better suited for active investment?
That's a very, very great question. It's also a very hard question to answer, right? So, taking a playbook, taking a leaf from Swaroop's playbook, our focus is to get users to decide what they are investing for. So, right, so we are a goal-driven investing platform. Our nudge is always, first tell us, it's a 1 year goal to buy an iPhone, it's a 5 year goal to travel, it's a 15-year goal to buy a house, and it's a 30-year goal for retirement, right? Once you know that, a lot of things fall through, right? If your iPhone goal does not materialize, you know, your quality of life will go down probably 2-3%. You'll probably be a bit sad if you're not able to buy that, nice phone. But if you don't have enough money when you retire, that's a big hit on your lifestyle for the rest remaining, and lifespans are increasing for the remaining 30-40 years. So the first step is always to kind of nudge them towards the direct, away from return anchoring, because what we've seen, especially with young investors, um, the chasing the market happens because they anchor on returns. They say, oh, okay, the stock is up 20% last month, let's buy this stock because it'll straight line. Now, you know that, I know that, we all here, we've seen multiple market cycles. We know that it won't straight line.
Hmm.
But for a young investor, that's the easiest, that this short-term history will repeat itself, that story will continue, because stocks also don't move in isolation. There's always a story behind it, and that story is what captivates you. The
Hmm.
story is what you start believing so passionately. You say that, oh my God, you know what? This stock is not, nothing is going to stop this stock for the next 2 years, right? And if you have some initial success, that builds up on it. So the first step is always to take away from return anchoring to more kind of like, goal-based advice and about asset allocation and rebalancing. But we also have a very paternalistic view on what we can and we cannot do. So
Hmm.
as advisors, as RIAs, we can show the people the data. We can tell them what is the right path for them. But at the end of the day, the person has to decide for themselves. So what's very popularly called is when you start investing, right? We never say no to anyone because it's either money or experience, right? If you invest for 1 year, either you will make money or you will gain experience. Eventually, hopefully, you will be a long-term investor and you will gain both.
Hmm.
The biggest risk we think about investing is that one is the risk on, what is the right way to start investing, whether it is active, whether it is passive. And we can kind of debate it for a very long time. And some people will say passive is the way to go. Some people will say active is the way to go. Our asset allocation is mostly biased towards passive. But if you think about a investor from their point of view, I'm a 24-year-old guy, right? What is the worst thing that can happen to me? The worst thing that can happen to me is that I make wrong choices. I lose 30% of my portfolio when I'm 26 years old, and then I never invest again. That part that they cease being an investor, because today as a
Hmm.
25, 24-year-old, how much am I investing? 50,000 rupees. I lose
Hmm.
30% of that. I lose 40% of that. I lose what, 20,000 rupees. That's peanuts compared to the wealth they are going to create as investors for 30 years, which now they're not going to be because they
Yeah.
got burned. And I see this happen, right? I mean, I started investing in 2000. My own first experience was not all that great.
Yeah.
Then I saw the 2008 crash, right? I was in New York trading CDS at that time. And everyone who joined the market in 2006, 2007, it was euphoric. New
Hmm.
account openings were at all-time highs. Indian data also shows the same, by the way. If you look at
Hmm.
folio creations in 2007, 2008. And then the crash happens, and a lot of them never invested again till 2014, 2015. Right? And
Hmm.
that's the kind of data we keep on presenting again and again. But to be very honest, Anuj, you can take a horse to the pond, can't make them drink, right? So people have to understand this. Some people do get it, some don't, and I think it's either money or experience at the end of the day.
In this environment, is there a way that you can participate either via active or passive funds? If an Indian investor wants to take advantage of, for example, the big rally in the FANG stocks, or something else, is there a way to do that via either active or passive?
Sure, Anuj. So of course, there are multiple ways now Indian investors can actually participate in international markets. The traditional route was the LRS route, where you could actually remit money overseas and participate in any of the international funds which are available through offshore platforms. Many of those platforms are now offered domestically by most of the brokerages through tie-ups which are there, and that's of course been there. One of the routes which is which is still not got that type of attention is the feeder routes, feeder funds which are available in India. As I was mentioning some earlier, that today, if you want to take exposure into some of the large international markets, whether it's the Nasdaq index or the S&P index, or even some of the active, from investing in Japan to actually going and investing in Brazil, in a way, that's the easiest way for any domestic investor to take a lot more informed way, or a much easier way to do it. You're investing in rupees. You can file all your, you don't need to do any additional file returns or things like that, which you would have to do in an LRS route, and you are able to get exposure in those type of markets which are there. So I think these are the two easiest ways in which one could actually take exposures. Of course, you could open brokerage accounts and directly start buying stocks overseas, but then it is again, how much of it do you really know? Who's advising you on that? And are you again trying to follow a trend called FANG today, and there could be something else which could replace that? And it should not be that, the type of liquidity and the type of information which drives some of these things, a domestic investor may not have access to that. So our advice to people have been to actually look at some of the passive funds which are there internationally, and be able to allocate across different geographies through that.
The big issue there. It's clear that all of you are advising that it's a combination of active and passive which perhaps works best, and that's something which almost everyone is settling on. But what proportion? Does it depend on the risk profile? Does it depend on what age you are starting investing in? Does it depend on what kind of market environment are we in? How do you decide, I'll put this much money in active and this much money in passive?
Anuj, I think that's a great question. First of all, the proportion is decided by the goal of the investor, and like both Gaurav and Pratik have been telling, then the asset allocation sort of takes over. But what a combination of the both can give you is, if you look at some aspects, is first you can look at the low cost solution. When you add, suppose, a large cap active fund proportion to a little bit of next 50 on the passive side, it can bring down your cost of the overall portfolio a bit. So you can actually adjust the cost of your portfolio by combining the two. You can also diversify within the segments. Like, say, again, just give you an example of, say, the large cap active funds, and again, say next 50, if you say, then you are actually diversifying your portfolio, because the large cap portfolio active funds are benchmarked to the Nifty 50. Then you can add and diversify within the large cap segment, which you're not getting by standalone active large cap funds. You can, as Pratik rightfully said, and that was, I think, a brilliant answer, is that you can tactically and strategically allocate across. I mean, you can again take, say, the large cap, and you can add some Nifty 50 or the IT ETFs to combine a strategic call of, say, banking and IT, if you have that call. Or you can do a complete diversification across by taking active equity and active debt and add gold and form a complete diversification. The gold you will get on the ETF side or the passive side, and you can form a complete diversification across assets. So by combining the point I'm trying to make is that the portfolio can become stronger, and you can achieve multiple sort of solutions by combining both the sides. And the time for that has come, is something we firmly believe.
Okay. Pratik, if you were to advise someone who is just starting out in terms of the combination of active and passive, how much money would you advise on the active side and how much on the passive side? And of course, if you have any more thoughts on that.
Right. So again, one point I would want to make on the passive side, because people think passive is the panacea or the solution for everything which is there. A lot of the passive indices are also evolving at this point of time, and you also have to get into the construction of the index itself, because most of the passive indices are actually market cap based indices, and so typically they don't tend to be nimble enough. So passive because there is no human intervention, or you can't override really what the index decisions are, tends to also be trailing at that juncture. And I'm just saying that one needs to be careful around it. Passives can also have tracking errors. So so that's why the answer is not about just moving 100% to passive or 100% to active. And the point which both Gaurav and Swaroop have made involves the mix of two.
Gaurav, so in your own analysis, do you see more growth from here on for active funds or for passive funds? I mean, in your own assets under advisory, for example, what's been the trend, and how do you see the trend evolving?
Okay, so two things there, Anuj. One is that passive is still a very small portion of asset under advice in India. So a lot of people are talking about it because the growth rate of passive is higher. But the base at which it is starting is really, really low in India. The penetration of passive funds in India is really, really low. What we see is some of this trend continuing. See, till the data reverses, right? I mean, at the end of the day, our big understanding, we try and tell investors in 20 different ways why returns should not be the only criteria that you should look at. I personally feel, and this is just my opinion here, that a lot of this interest in passive that is happening in India right now is because passive funds have done really well in the past 3-4 years, and a lot of active funds in the large cap space, at least, and some in the mid and small cap space, have been unable to outperform the passive, right? So they're triggering on those return charts, and people are getting interested. Oh, okay, this is passive fund, right? So do we think that this is a permanent trend? Now that jury is still out. The key understanding and the key test is when there is a period of 2-3 years when passives will underperform, and that will happen in markets. It will happen. I mean, it'll happen in the next 3 years, in the next 10 years, but it will happen. During that window, are people still going towards passive? So are people going to passives as a philosophy that, hey, you know what, we agree that it is becoming harder and harder to outperform in the market, so let's just be happy with the market returns? Or are people going into passives just because passives have done well in the recent past? And my opinion is that the jury is out on that. In the near future, we do expect to see the growth rate in the passives to be higher than the growth rate in the actives. Having said that, if you look at the total quantum of the money, more money will go into actives than passives. And I think Swaroop will have much more handier data on this, but that's how we look at it.
Yeah, and actually, I'll give the last word to Swaroop. Now, Swaroop, one reason for that also is because we do not have too many passive products, right? I mean, I struggle to find, for example, even on the Nifty Junior ETF, I think there are only 2 ETFs which have decent liquidity. For example, I don't find too many ETFs on, say, pharma, or I don't find too many ETFs on autos. I don't find too many ETFs on specialty chemicals, for example. So, do you think in the industry will mature now and we'll see more and more passive products as well?
Yeah, I think the job of an asset manager is to produce good products, and then the job of the advisor is to then see which product fits into the portfolio of the investor in the rightful manner. Now, if you look at the industry at this moment, we are on the threshold of that. I do believe that from a product development perspective, there is a lot of active thinking in forming a passive product, and we will see the creativity on that side unfolding in India. If you look at the global market, we've seen some unbelievable strategies on the passive side already out in the market. Some stuff that happens on the cloud computing, or just our famous Mariana Fund is a big example of what passive sides can do to get a very good strategic allocation into the portfolio of clients. And then I think in India, we are on the threshold of that. And a lot of AMCs are now getting into that thought process. And I think next year, this time, if we are having this same conversation, the answer would already be there in the market.
All right, gentlemen, thanks a lot. It was a really interesting conversation that I had. I myself learned something new. And of course, like with most things in life, it's neither one extreme or the other. The solution lies somewhere in between. That, of course, has to be a different solution for everyone. But thanks a lot for taking time out and talking to me on this special series. Thank you so much.
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all the scheme-related documents carefully.